Hello, and welcome to the We Are Power podcast. If this is your first time here, the We Are Power podcast is the podcast for you, your career, and your life. We release an episode every single Monday with listeners in over 60 countries worldwide, where you'll hear personal life stories, top-notch industry advice, and key leadership insight from amazing role models. As We Are Power is the umbrella brand to Northern Power Women Awards, which celebrates hundreds of female role models and advocates every year. This is where you can hear stories from all of our awards alumni and stay up to date with everything MPW Awards and We Are Power. Well, hello and welcome to this week's podcast. I am delighted today to be joined on our lovely teal, isn't it? Our teal sofas by James Cars. One R2S's, by the way. Here's the chief exec of Castle Peak Group. Welcome to Liverpool. Welcome to the studio.
Thank you so much, Simone. Lovely to be here on the teal sofa.
Now, we met probably only just more than 6 months ago at a rooftop bar in Newcastle, didn't we? When we were up there on tour, and went,
yeah.
You know what? I love what you do. I want to partner with you guys. It was, probably, like you said, the easiest sale ever.
I know. The ironic thing is, it's difficult for me and what I do to close deals, and I gave you the easiest close to do, didn't I?
I was waiting for the camera to come out. I'm like, what's going on here?
It's a setup. It's a joke. No, it was a great decision, and I didn't have any doubt in my mind. I mean, that was the thing, and that was the first time I've met you guys in person. But you were all so great and authentic, and the conversations, and so welcoming to me, because that was the first time that I'd been at one of your events. And it was quite a small event, but the quality of people that you had there and the conversation that was going on, I was like, yeah, this will be good.
And you'd been nominated also at that point, because I think this was just before Christmas time.
I didn't know that though.
No, and you've been nominated for the Northern Power Women Awards advocacy list as well. And you are on the 2025 advocacy list. So congratulations. We'll get into all of that. We'll unpack all of that in a second. But how would you describe yourself? I always like to say in one word, but I think that's flipping impossible for Northerners at the best of times. But give us a sentence or 3 words, and how would you say who you are?
If it was going to be one word, I would just say a friend. If it was going to be 3 words, friend, supporter, ally.
Wow, okay. And you've had such an interesting life. You've lived over in Hong Kong. You've lived a short period of time in Canada, I think, as well.
Yeah, I was in Vancouver, right.
But it's safe to say that martial arts has been fundamental to who you are and the path that you have trodden. Take us through some of those life lessons that you've learned and across those different continents as well.
Yeah, I mean, it has been centric to my life. It's also been centric to the decision making on the places that I've gone to, the places I've gone to live, and the paths that I've taken and the decisions. And it's actually very centric to what I'm doing now. And a lot of people don't know this actually. I think I've talked about it once before. But I was involved in a race attack when I was about 10 years old. So myself and an Asian friend were badly beaten up, as in like put in hospital, beaten up. And there's a bit of a story behind that. But and it was in the late 80s, kind of at that time when when racism was a lot more overt than it is now. It's still here now, but it was more violent from some perspectives. And I was very young, so think events like that to happen, a violent event at that age kind of shapes you and what you do. So that took me into the martial arts first of all, because I was like, I'm never going to let that happen again, and started to train in multiple disciplines from a really young age, which led to an absolute obsession, and I mean obsession. That at the age of 12, 13, I was training 4 or 5 hours a day every evening, and my whole life revolved around it. And I knew very quickly at that point that I needed to go out to the Orient and train, and that's what I wanted to. And I became obsessed with the movies, and Bruce Lee was my hero growing up, which still is my hero now, who was somebody who faced massive discrimination in his life, especially when he was in America, when he was in Hollywood on trying to get into the movie industry and everything that he achieved and went through and did. So there's a massive story about him and also being part of a mixed race family and stuff. So so it determined many things. Of course, now I suppose the type of martial arts that I do, which is predominantly Chinese martial arts, we call it the internal school, things like Tai Chi, etc. It's about mindfulness, about being in the moment. And that does help you develop deep levels of concentration, connection between your mind and your body and things like that. And I'm still learning about being an entrepreneur and a business owner. It's only 18 months in, right? I've got a long background in doing what I've done in recruitment and executive search, but actually running it as a business for myself, I'm a white belt. Right. And that's one thing I do love is the white belt mentality in everything I do, that you should never think like a black belt or a 10th Dan. You should always think like, what have you got to learn? What do you need to do? And life is all about learning. So no matter how experienced you are, no matter how good you might think you are at something or a set of skills you've developed, you're always a white belt. And in our martial art, we don't wear any belts anyway, or have any gradings. So
you had this awful traumatic incident that you witnessed at the age of 10. By the age of 12, you're training 4 times a week. You're committed. You're all
4 hours a day.
4 hours a day. Yeah. Sorry, 4 hours a day. At what point did you then take yourself over with your family to?
Yeah, well, I went by myself first. So,
what age were you then?
I was in my late 20s. So I studied sports science at university, so it took me academically through that route. I wasn't very good at doing GCSEs and A-levels and things like that because I just didn't have an interest level in doing that. So I ended up kind of through the vocational qualifications to the BTEC in leisure. And that took me through clearing to get into a university, which wasn't a good university from academic point of view. It was the University of Luton, which is now Bedfordshire. It was the first year there'd been a university, but they were running a really good sport course. So that was life-changing for me to get away from home for the first time as well, at the age of sort of 18, 19. And be in a town like Luton, which has got it's a brilliant town, but it's got its own unique characteristics as well. If you've ever been there, it's very different from where I grew up in North Tyneside. And then that took me to London, which I worked in executive search for a few years. And I was trying to find my opportunity to get out to Hong Kong. So I knew it was going to be Hong Kong. So I managed to get a role in banking recruitment. I started in finance first because I knew banking would be the easiest route. Once I had that experience, Hong Kong being a big financial services hub, that would make me more employable over there. So everything was kind of set out from that point of view. Eventually managed to get out there when I was in my late 20s at the time. I went out with literally with one suitcase by myself. I didn't have any kind of relocation help or anything like that. I had secured a role out there, but on a local package, not as an expat or anything like that. It was a really interesting time in Hong Kong at that point because they just got over SARS and they'd been through this terrible pandemic, which was at that, I mean, COVID was awful here, but SARS is I think fair to say a more serious disease or to get because of the rate of fatalities from it was much higher. That had decimated their economy and also the recruitment industry because people wouldn't get together and have interviews and have meetings. There was no Teams or Zoom or anything there. There was Skype, but if you remember what Skype calls were like, you know, trying to get a connection and stuff on that. So I went out at this really interesting time, which was fortuitous timing for me because the economy was going like that and recovering from it very fast. But I was at that point, I was by myself.
But then I think something I read was that you got a mentor, and it was your martial arts mentor who became, if you like, your Chinese dad, I think, if I read.
Yeah, that's what I call him.
And you became part of the family. So you're there locally on the local package, so you haven't got all the
trimmings of an expat. I wasn't
like.
living up on the peak or anything like that.
But the power of that mentorship must have made all that difference.
It did. It's a very, very strong bond and relationship that we've got. And when I first went out to Hong Kong, I wanted to. I was almost like a kid in a sweet shop. I wanted to test out every martial arts school, every teacher. I had a very loose recommendation for this one school that didn't advertise anywhere, didn't have any website. So it was all in Chinese. It was really hard to find, and it was in a rundown building in the middle of Mongkok. But I found it in the first week, and this teacher was in there who was teaching it, and straight away I felt like I probably wasn't that welcome, more from an inconvenience point of view, because here's this guy who's just turned up from England, this Westerner, doesn't speak Chinese. We've got this well-run class here. We don't really want to send him away. He's probably not going to stay. They don't like Kung Fu tourists over there who come for a couple of weeks and then disappear kind of thing. So he kind of ignored me for the first couple of weeks and just sort of looked at me and gave me a couple of corrections and shook his head, and then thought, wow, this is going to be a bit of a waste of time. And then after probably a month, he realized that I wasn't going anywhere and I was going to come back. But there was a bit of an issue because my Cantonese at that point, I speak a little bit now, was pretty much non-existent, and so was his English. So unbeknown to me, I didn't know this, he bought himself a load of books in English to teach himself English. And I was like, when I found that out, and we joke about it now because I say to him, Sifu, which is the Chinese term for master. I said, Sifu, all those years ago, 20 years ago, you were learning English, teach me Kung Fu. Now, my Kung Fu's still not very good. You speak perfect English. So actually what's happened here, if I been your English teacher over that period of time, and he does speak good English now. So that kind of like sums up our relationship. And, when I got married, we got married over in Thailand. He came up to the wedding. I was at his family wedding. I get invited to all these kind of family events and things like that. And it's a really close bond. And probably the most, I would say, almost heartwarming thing anyone's ever said to me from him was when I was at his son's wedding. And we were sat at the same table together, like Chinese banquet kind of style. And it was after the wedding. We were on the table, and he's talking to his son, and his son speaks good English because he's a fireman. And Sifu was saying, it's one of my biggest regrets that I'm really happy and proud of you getting married today, but you never learned Kung Fu from me. But I'll tell you one thing: if you change your mind in the future at any point, and I'm too old, you need to go to him. And I was like, for him to say that to his son.
Passed
was like,
on.
Yeah. It was a big thing. And I've brought him now he's come to the UK 3 or 4 times, which he loves to teach seminars. So he's now the Qigong, which means like the Grand Master in Chinese. I have unofficially have a Sifu title. And so when he comes over here, my students call him Qigong, and he loves that, and he's had a fantastic time. So he needs to come here because he's also a massive Liverpool Football Club fan. So I've been telling him, I think next year he'll be coming back over again. We'll go to Anfield. I took him for the St. James's Park tour, but his face was a bit like when he saw my Kung Fu the first time. It was a bit like,
let's get him in. We'll get him in on the couch
Yeah,
with you, and we'll do
definitely.
the reverse follow-up story.
That would be
then
great.
We'll get all the full story, because actually I want to know that in your time, if I remember rightly reading, you also had some bit parts in movies. You wanted to be a movie star?
Your research goes deep. Yeah. Well, yeah, I mean, it was kind of good timing. It wasn't something planned on my side. I won't say that I didn't want to be a movie star. I mean, who wouldn't want to be a movie star? But I got the opportunity to do a couple, and I would say very, very small parts in movies, like, blink and you'd miss. And I was in two main ones. One was a Hong Kong movie called True Master, and one was an American movie called Lady Bloodfight, which was a remake of Bloodsport with a female cast. And of course, I was a bad guy in both of them. With a face like this, I'm not going to be like a leading hero kind of a guy, right? I mean, Lady Bloodsport, it's on Amazon, so you can see it on there. It's like a 6.5 out of 10 kind of a movie, right? The other one, even by Chinese standards, is so bad. Like, literally, if you wouldn't have to pay to go to the cinema and watch that, but you'd probably have to pay to leave. It's that bad. But the interesting thing about that is I play a Russian boxer in the movie. So it's a period movie set in the 1800s.
Brilliant.
And I play this Russian boxer, and I've got like kind of the black tie and tux on and stuff like that. I get killed fairly early in the movie, but I've got a few a few lines in it, and that movie's been released in a lot of different languages, and they use somebody else to dub my English lines, like in America. So it's really weird to watch a movie where you're speaking it's the English version, but it isn't actually me with who's saying the words. That's odd. But the funniest thing about that was it was a whole Chinese cast and Chinese director, and they said to me at the beginning, "Can you do a Russian accent?" And of course, I'm like, "Well, yeah. I mean, what's a Russian accent?" But I realized they also probably didn't really know what a Russian accent was. So me being a little bit mischievous at the time, I thought I'm going to do my lines in really broad Geordie. So I did, and there's this one scene. So I've got a horse. It's a period movie, and I've got a horse, and I need to run out of this temple, right? I need to shout, look at the camera, and shout and go, "Who's killed my horse?" But in a Russian accent. So I run out of the temple and I go, "Who's killed my horse?" Like that, and it didn't make it in the movie, but I've got an outtake of it, which is quite funny. Yeah,
you need that. I need to see that on LinkedIn.
Yeah, I can show you.
What did you learn most about failing at being a movie star?
I learned it's really hard work, especially doing fight scenes, especially doing number of takes. I thought people would pull punches and kicks. At that time, I was competitively fighting, and I had to go to China to film that Real Master one. It was a few days in China. And it was harder than any fight I've ever done because all the Chinese stuntmen want to beat up the Western guy. So all these scenes, you could see them all legging on, "Yeah, it's your turn next, it's your turn next." So it was incredibly painful. I was black and blue afterwards. And I was like, I'm never going to do that again. I'm never going to do that again. It's boring because you're on film set a lot of the time. So it's not like kind of high rolling and looking like it's going to be an amazing day and you're going to get treated like gold when you do it. So it's arduous, it's tough. So I think it gave me respect for anybody who works in that sector globally. And obviously you learn all of the different roles that people do and the size of a cast it is to make a movie. You just don't know when you watch a movie. It's like kind of eating in a restaurant. You don't know what's going on in the kitchen in the background and on how many people have worked together to produce that meal that you're eating. So it was a lot of fun, but it's funny that you say failing at movies because yeah, I did essentially fail. But and I remember after we filmed the first one, and the director saying to me, "Oh, you've done a really great job, and I've got all of your contact details, and we'll be in touch for the next one. What do you like on these dates?" And I was like, yeah, that's fine. Phone never rang. Never happened. Never happened. So, but I was really lucky to have that experience. And, may not have changed cinematic history or kind of started anything that was famous. But for me, growing up and being obsessed with that and watching those movies, then getting the opportunity to be in for it from a personal point of view, that's good enough.
And you taught the ways of Geordie Russian, right?
Absolutely. Immortalized Geordie Russian. Yeah.
There you go. That's a whole Duolingo, I think.
It could be. Could release it as an app. Yeah.
So talk to me, how did you get from being the movie star to being the Chinese sun, like back over into the Northeast?
Yeah, well...
and by the way, you were doing a job in financial recruitment as well, so...
I was working for an organisation across there, big company called Hudson, and ended up sort of running a practice there, running an office, and then getting a big... in recruitment, sometimes if you just don't move jobs too many times and you're half good, you will do quite well. So I stayed in one company for about 8 years, which people don't normally do. So I ended up being a consultant, going up to being general manager and overseeing a few offices, which was really good at a very young age. I think there's a lot of that I didn't do very well. If I was doing that now, I would have done it much better. So I was learning on the job a lot of the time, but that was still the day job. And I was very committed to that and really enjoyed doing that. Well, of course, family happened. So met my wife out there and we worked for the same company initially, but that didn't last too long. It lasted longer than the relationship until she decided to go and work somewhere else. And then pretty realized the age we were getting to at that point, we better start a family, which we did. And then when we were 2 kids in, started to think, Hong Kong, living in apartments, not much space, pretty expensive place for kids and stuff like that. As much as we loved it, we probably should start to think about another place that's going to be more suitable for us as a family. Loved Hong Kong, still do. And it was not an easy decision to make, but it was literally because of family logistics at the time that we did that. And so there was a stint in Canada first, in Vancouver, which I would say was all right. Good and bad things about that. Great as a city. It was a difficult personal time because as we were moving, found out my wife was pregnant with number 3. So not the best time to do that when you're in an international move and moving everything across. Didn't have a lot of support out there as well. So I'd settled into a role there and then received a phone call from an organization that I knew very well that was based in the Northeast called NRG, from their founder, who'd asked me to would I consider coming back to Newcastle. And the interesting thing is, when I left and I went to London, then I went to Hong Kong, it was never to get away from Newcastle. It was just to get other experiences and follow like goals and aspirations in life and stuff like that. And when I actually did come back to Newcastle, it's amazing the amount of people who say, "Why did you come back?" And it's like, well, I didn't go to get away. I thought I could have been away. When I was in Hong Kong, I could have been there for a year. I didn't have any kind of plan on how that was going to pan out and end up stay for more than 12 years, come back with a wife and family and all this kind of Chinese dad. I did not have that plan or even have any idea around that. It's just sometimes the way life goes. So this opportunity to come back to the Northeast was a great one. My parents still being around, not in great health, the chance to have my kids around their grandparents and things like that. So there was a number of reasons. It was a bit of a sell to my wife, if I'm honest to you, because she'd only been back to the Northeast a few times with me, normally at Christmas time. Not great weather then, dark pubs, meeting mates, things like that. Hadn't really seen the best of it. So it was a little bit of a sell to her. But I tell you what, from a location point of view and a life and kind of what happened afterwards, it's on a par with going to Hong Kong as the best decision I did. One, going to Hong Kong, and one coming back to the Northeast.
And I know that Northeast is so key to who you are. And I know as much as your martial arts, one of the things that you love is family time, food, eating out, and walks with Bella.
Bella, of course,
and that beautiful Northeast landscapes. That's
it's a fantastic place
and free, right?
Yeah,
it's there on your doorstep.
It's got some similarities to Hong Kong. It's a little bit colder and a little bit wetter, but the convenience, because you've got, no matter where you live, you've got beaches, you've got beautiful coastline within 10, 15 minutes. You've got world-class city, shopping centre, you've got fantastic people, you've got a very mixed diversity of different groups of people as well with different backgrounds. You've got a friendliness there that is quite unique to, I think, to the Northeast. I'm not going to say Newcastle, I'm going to say the Northeast, because we use Newcastle as a centric point.
Of course.
But there's many great cities there as well. Sunderland, Durham, Middlesbrough. And that they've all got different characteristics, but I love the Northeast. So I'm from Newcastle, but it's just an amazing place. And then you'd never speak to anyone who'd visit there and go, I wouldn't go back there again, and people are horrible or anything else. You'll always get a very unique experience. And as a place to bring up a family, it's first class because of what you've got around you and the environment, the schools and everything else. So it was a really great decision. I didn't quite know how it was going to pan out, but I'm certainly glad I came back.
And talk to us, 18 months ago, you set up Castle Peak, right? And I think of the story we've chatted through today and your experience of inclusion is the heart of what you do. You go back to that awful experience when you were 10 years old and what you witnessed. That stayed with you. It did. It enabled you and motivated you to take on that real commitment around martial arts, to make the big move. But where did Castle Peak, at what point did you go, I'm going to do this my way because I'm so passionate about inclusion and fairness and equity. I'm going to do this myself. Yeah.
I think it was like a perfect storm of different things coming together at one point. And I'd achieved quite a few things in recruitment. One of the things I wanted to do was be involved in a business that got sold, and had been through that. I'd then taken on an MD role again, which was in the same company for a few years, and we'd gone through the pandemic and all that type of stuff. And I was approaching 50, so it's that kind of honestly like midlife crisis starting to go on, thinking, where am I going with this? And as a let's be honest, an older dad, because my kids are quite young. There's 3 between 12 and 8. And I've got, mates I went to university with and in school with. Their kids are all growing up and left home and stuff now. Because we had them late, I'm in a slightly different position. That means, first of all, I need to work until I'm probably about 110, the way kids stay at home now and all that kind of stuff. But it does map out what's in front of you and what you want to be doing and where you're comfortable, where you can add value. And I did feel at that point unfulfilled, I would say, in what I was doing. In recruitment, it's very difficult to give back because you can provide a great service in what you do. You can get somebody a great job, but they've earned that role. They would have got it anyway. You're just the person to make the introduction, but somebody else could have introduced them. And it's likewise to an organization, you can find them a great person, but if it's a great job, they would have got it anyway. So you're not really making a difference to the world in challenging things. So I was just thinking, like, what do I want to do? It might not make business sense, but how can I put together everything that I feel passionate about into my skills and experience, which are pretty much either in, well, they're in 2 areas, aren't they? They're in martial arts, in recruitment. And I wasn't going to be a full-time martial arts teacher. I didn't fancy that. So that really got me thinking, and it was coming up to my birthday, literally towards the end of the year in 2023, and it was at the point of being away on half term with the kids, being a little bit dissatisfied in the role I was going, not in at that time, not, I would say, aligned with the values of the organization I was working with as well, which is a massive thing. You put up with that when you're younger. When you get a bit older, you just think, nah. So that was the catalyst to set everything up. And then, of course, in January 2024, so it's 18 months ago, there I was. First time ever at the age of 50, starting a business on my own. Not a clue what to do. And in it, and I had just done it. So it went down pretty quick, actually.
And what have you learnt most about being an entrepreneur and being your own?
Well, I'm still
boss?
learning. I'm still learning. I had lots of advice, and I still get lots of advice, which is brilliant. And you have to always validate that advice on where it comes from as well. I found that a lot of people gave me advice who hadn't had their own business, and that was interesting. And then, of course, you speak to other people who've run successful businesses, but also you want to speak to people who've run unsuccessful businesses and failed a few times, because often you'll get the best advice there. Best piece of advice I ever had in the beginning was hold your nerve, because that is really tough when you feel that kind of pressure, when you know you're not going to get the paycheck at the end of the month. Where's the next meeting coming from? Where's the next job? Where's the next invoice, et cetera, et cetera. That is really, really tough in the beginning. So I would reiterate that piece of advice, that you have to hold your nerve and stick to your guns and not make rash decisions on things. From that point of view, it's never going to be an easy life, the hours that you put in. And I probably didn't realize how lucky I was before in terms of the lifestyle that I had and the time that I had around, from having a corporate job, from having an exec corporate job, that you could offload a lot of things to other people to support you and to help you, as you do. When you're doing everything by yourself, it's really, really tough. IT, finance, back office, marketing, all these kind of things that you'd have great people to work with before. And so you have to learn, but you also have to identify when you need help as well, and realize that you can't possibly do everything. So I had a tough few months when I was getting going. Darkest point for me was probably about 6 weeks in, when my email got hacked, which was just unbelievable. It was off a CV attachment of a candidate that had opened up. They had been hacked, and it just deleted everything off across my system. I was like 6 weeks in to try and build a business. It then went out to all my client base at the same. Now I had a high level of security as well, but once you open one of these things, you and especially if it was a CV, I thought it was pretty safe. So that was absolutely awful. I had to contact all my clients who I'd been telling them that, this is what we're doing. This is the organization we're going to be and working with, and we're small boutique, etc. We can do this, and suddenly that happened. So embarrassing, So that was a massive learning as well. And you can't turn that into a positive. I mean, I had a good level of security at the time. Now I've literally got SWAT teams standing around my computer like that for anything that comes in. So you are safe now if you're dealing with me. But you know, it can happen to anybody. But obviously that sort of situation when that goes down, you're in a corporation, you call up your head of IT or whatever, everything gets dealt with really quickly.
Resilience.
I didn't have that. Yeah, I need a lot of resilience.
You're all in the business about finding exceptional people. What makes an exceptional person?
Oh, wow. What a question. Many, many different things. I think unique skills within a particular area. The market's always changing, so the market will always look for different things at different times. An exceptional person is somebody who's got a skill set that's the top of the game on what they do, but also they can put that across and they can communicate around it as well to bring things to life, to help other people up. And you see a lot of people who are either very strong on the communication side and they're good at business partnering and things like that, and a lot of people that are very technical. But then you put the two things together, I think that's what makes somebody exceptional and where people can stand out. But also in terms of values and being able to feel the good in somebody as well, in terms of what they do and what their aspirations are and who they want to work with and trying to get that fit. So there's an exceptional quality around that as well.
One of the things I really comes across about you, James, is everything that you've learned from your Chinese dad. And your Chinese dad is passing over the baton to his son. But I saw a beautiful post about you training with your daughter.
Oh yeah,
and you've got two boys and a girl, haven't you?
2 boys and a girl.
And I loved it. It was the post was, I thought this would be one of the boys, and here's my daughter, and it's you doing exactly the same, isn't it?
Yeah,
is passing on that baton.
Yeah, and she's developing an obsession like me as well, which is unbelievable. And of course, I did gender stereotypes. Going to be honest, always thought it'd be my boys who'd be interested in training me and doing this stuff. Nah, not interested at all. 100% my daughter, and she's very, very good as well. But she trains by herself. She's got that part of me in her to go and work on something and develop it and trying to improve that self-improvement all the time. And she's very, very dedicated. I send her to other martial arts teachers as well to spend time doing things. But that as a father, as me, I've got a lot of students, but to have your daughter want to train with you, to come out, interrupt my practice and say, Dad, can I do some? Can you show me this, and me not have to ask her to do it?
Amazing.
Is it's brilliant.
And you give back constantly because you do some specific training for sort of, I'm gonna misquote this, but I know you do different, but you also do training and give back for over 55s group as well, I think, as well, isn't it?
I teach a group of over 55s Tai Chi.
You're part of our mentoring program as part of the MPW Awards for the wonderful Joe Milne, who was only on the podcast a few weeks ago. That feels like an addiction for you, this give back.
It is. And I kind of fell into it by accident, but I love doing it because you get so much out of it. From the martial arts point of view, I spend time with young athletes who are competitive and who are, fighting in professional rings and at the top of the game. That's brilliant. Some of them come from, disadvantaged backgrounds, so being able to help them and advise and coach them. It's nothing like a contact sport to be able to do that, to help people, boys and girls from that point of view. And then to be able to give something to people who are aging and not in that category as well, to get them moving, to get the benefit of that. So there's a diversity around martial arts as well. It can be fit for purpose for different groups, and I love that. It's fantastic. And also through, as you said, through my work, to be able to do some coaching. I feel like because I'm learning so much, it's hard to coach around the business, but I can coach around some of the recruitment, around some of the EDI stuff. So I do things around unconscious bias as well. So there's a lot of organizations often that can't afford to partner with an executive search firm. So rather than just thinking, that's not my client base, I always think, well, what can I do? Can I do something pro bono to help them? Can I do some coaching? Can I point them in this direction? Can I spend some time with them as well? Rather than just saying, that's not for me. But I love doing that. It's really, really good. And to see the benefit of that, or to sometimes connect other people that might be out the realms of an official recruitment introduction, do that all the time.
But that's just being thoughtful and intentional, isn't it? What's the big ambition?
There isn't one. honestly, there isn't one. Since day one, and people don't believe me when I say this, and anyone who's got any business sense goes like that. Never worked to a business plan in terms of what I do. Yeah, never worked to one. The reason being, I spent 25 years in the corporate world being rigid, sticking to business plans. You never stick to them. They cause more problems around them. You're trying to fit, a round peg into a square hole. Doesn't work. Being in the moment, trying to seize opportunities when they come out, trying to be really good at what you do, trying to improve people's lives, trying to give people opportunities who wouldn't have opportunities before, see where that goes. I don't have an ambition. I'm not thinking about building this business up to be X, Y, and Z or X headcount, X revenue. I don't know. Just take each day as it comes and put 100% of myself into it. That's it. That is the ambition.
And do good stuff.
Do good stuff all the time. Good stuff behind every interaction, every conversation, every meeting. And try to challenge people in a good way as well. So often I'll sometimes come across organizations that might even reach out to me. They don't realize the EDI stuff that's behind it.
Yeah.
And I like that, because then I can start to sort of suss them out a little bit and see where they're motivated. And that's when you can really evoke change with someone who's actually not on board with things like that, and try to push them beyond their limits, but in a subtle way. So I'm a little bit mischievous like that, but I like doing that.
James, advocate, martial arts, mentor, movie star, linguist. Thank you so much for joining us today. We'll put all the information about Castle Peak Group and all of the other good stuff. I even want to put a link to the Geordie Scouts, the Geordie Russian link. We need
Geordie
that
Scouts could be another one.
That could be the next stage, couldn't it? That could be the next bit. James, thank you so much for joining us. Thank you.
Really appreciate being here. Thanks for the invite. Great talking to you.
Thank you so much. Subscribe on YouTube, Apple, Amazon Music, Spotify, or wherever you get your podcasts. Leave us a review or follow us on socials. We are power_net on Insta, TikTok and Twitter. Or We Are Power on LinkedIn, Facebook. And We Are _power on YouTube.